With Salem's arrival in Atlas, there are plenty of new threats to worry about, but the most prominent of which at the moment seems to be the Hound, the Grimm that we saw in the Volume 8 trailer that Salem is sending after the one who can show her how to use the Relic of Knowledge. So let's discuss some possible inspirations for the Hound and its impact that it's going to have on the RWBY series. I will say spoiler warnings for those who haven't seen Episode 1 and Episode 2 of Volume 8 just yet, as some things I will be discussing are relevant to both episodes, so a fair warning on that. The Hound we've seen in both episodes. In Episode 1, it was sent after him, the one who can show Salem how to use the Relic of Knowledge, and as many of us were theorizing, that was Oscar. Once we got to Episode 2, though, there were some pretty interesting revelations with the Hound. Not only can it shift its shape, but it can also speak and has intelligence, so this is going to be a very significant Grimm for the RWBY series as a whole. Likely may only be a threat for Volume 8 or Volume 9, as it may be killed by the end of it or taken care of, but it could be a longer-lasting threat. For that, we will have to see. After my review of Episode 2, there were a lot of people in the comments below saying that this is likely the big bad wolf, relating it to RWBY's storyline and her inspiration from Red Riding Hood, which is a definite possible inspiration for this Grimm. But if we're already relating it to a wolf, there is another very prominent wolf that this could be related to, that of Fenrir from Norse mythology, the monstrous wolf that is set to be released on Ragnarok, Doomsday, and is going to wreak havoc on that day, which seems very likely with Salem arriving at Atlas, this Grimm seeming to be kept sealed until this time when Salem needed it, and then released upon Atlas to go do her bidding. So I think this Grimm is going to have one or the other, or likely both of these inspirations. Fenrir in specific because it has been noted in Norse mythology that Fenrir grew at an alarming rate, given how we saw in Episode 2 that this Grimm can shift its form very quickly and can manipulate its own body at an alarming rate. It seems very likely that that might be inspired by Fenrir. But the actual origins of the Hound might stem from a more relation to RWBY's storyline, that of Summer Rose. A lot of people were saying that this Grimm, with its ability to talk, and the fact that it doesn't seem to have eyes, which could be very significant. We know from Volume 7 that Summer went to confront Salem at some point, and Summer was wrong that they would be able to defeat her. It's been theorized for quite a while that Salem had done something to Summer, and with Volume 7 that seems quite likely, and this may be it. That she has completely hybridized a Grimm with a human's body, in this case Summer, and possibly manipulated the Silver Eyes in some way, or simply removed the Silver Eyes, and is using this Grimm to do her bidding, which does seem likely given the unique nature of this Grimm, but it also raises the question, why is there only one Grimm so far that has the ability to speak, that has all of these capabilities? It's likely either because Salem had to invest magic or some sort of resource into this Grimm that she doesn't have a vast amount of, and well, she was only able to create this one, or maybe two if there are others later on in the RWBY series, or it needs to be someone who could survive this transformation and create a Grimm this unique and powerful, such as Summer Rose, possibly something related to the Silver Eyes in general. I've already made a video on corrupted Silver Eyes and how Salem might want to use that for her own advantage, and this could be it. That maybe this is just some amalgamation of Summer's Silver Eyes that were taken instead of Summer herself, but there's a number of different possibilities, and relating this to RWBY's story would give a huge impact for the RWBY series as a whole. Not only RWBY herself, but also Yang. Yang being the older sister, she has more memories of Summer than RWBY does, and so if this reveal does happen that the Hound is in fact Summer Rose, it would be devastating to RWBY, but also Yang. We saw in the Volume 8 trailer that Yang had a very shocked expression, horrified expression on her face, and it could be because of this. Currently, it's Yang, Ren, and Jean who have encountered this Grimm and are chasing after it because it currently has Oscar. If at some point they do catch up to it, are able to ground it out of the sky, and are forced in a fight with it, well, we already saw how a fight with it's going to go. It's extremely strong, and I don't really think these three are going to be capable of handling it on their own unless Summer regains some sort of consciousness, is able to hold it back, and have that fight that way, but this is going to be a very impactful revelation. There were people also pointing out that, well, if this is the big bad wolf, Summer Rose being transformed into it, etc., well, this doesn't necessarily fit the Red Riding Hood inspiration because Summer Rose herself isn't the grandmother, she's the mother of RWBY, but I think it still fits close enough to the inspiration that it would fit. Fenrir, on the other hand, if the Hound does take a bit of inspiration from that, as I said, could be both the Red Riding Hood, Big Bad Wolf inspiration, as well as Fenrir in Norse mythology, could have very significant impact for Nora and Ren this volume, possibly even killing one of them. One of the more prominent things in Fenrir's story, though, is that when it was first sealed, it took someone's arm, so someone might be losing a limb in this volume. As I made a video on the casualties of Volume 8, I think that there's going to be quite a few injuries that are going to happen, and possible prominent deaths. And I think this Grimm is going to be at the center of at least a couple of them, and possibly Ren and Nora being one of the mainstays of it. If Ren, chasing after this Grimm now, ended up injured by this Grimm, an arm taken, or his life taken, that would be very impactful for Nora. In the Volume 8 opening, we see a lot of indication that Ren and Nora are growing further apart, but in one scene, Nora turns around to look at Ren, and she too has a shocked expression on her face. Maybe that he's become injured, maybe that something else is happening to him, or possibly that he may have been killed, or in dire straits on the verge of death, likely because of this Grimm. This Grimm is going to be a very prominent factor in Volume 8, and there's going to be some revelations around it. Having a talking Grimm in general is going to be very impactful, and I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold. There are other possibilities, though, for what this Grimm could be created from. It could be a part of Salem herself. I mentioned this in my review, the fact that it has the same wings that we saw in the Volume 8 opening of Salem having that kind of grimmified version of herself. Not that she isn't already grimmified, but still, this could be just a part of Salem, something that she can absolutely control and have her will directed through it, more so than other Grimm. Or this could have started out as a regular Grimm that Salem has just gifted some of her magic to give it these other capabilities. We've seen Ozpin gift his magic to others in the past, so Salem could likely do the same thing. And gifting it to a Grimm that she has complete control over just makes sense. Though I think if this was a human transformed into a Grimm, she would still have to gift her magic to it because of the way it transforms. And this would also make more sense considering that other Grimm are inherently afraid of the Hound. When the Sabers were running up and the Hound showed up as well, the Sabers turned tail and ran away, meaning that they sensed something off about this Grimm. Whether it was the will of their master being transmitted through this Hound, if it was a part of Salem's body, would make complete sense that they would run in the other direction on her will, on her say-so, or perhaps they just sensed their master's magic, or perhaps they sensed the Silver Eyes, or something like that. There's also the possibility, though, that it could be a different character transformed into a Grimm. It's already been theorized that maybe Adam would be Grimmified at some point, and as I mentioned in my review, it could also be a previous member of Salem's inner circle that maybe disobeyed at some time, and this just ended up being their fate. One possibility being Leonardo Lionheart. We saw at the end of Volume 5 how he ended up being killed by Salem for being disobedient, and this could be his fate. The only problem with either of those possibilities is from the time at which these characters died to now, Salem would have had to get their body to wherever she is and put them in the black pools, invest enough resources into them to transform them, etc. I'm guessing by the way that this Grimm was sealed, it's something that Salem has held on to for quite a while, and to me, the most likeliest scenario seems to be Summer Rose being transformed into this Grimm, if it is in fact someone being transformed into it. Again, seems likely given the fact that it can talk, has intelligence, etc., something that the humans and faunus of the world are only supposed to have. Animals still have their own instincts, still possess souls, but, don't possess this superior intelligence, possess sentience, etc. So, seems most likely that this is going to be Summer Rose transformed into a Grimm if they are going to go that route. Regardless, though, it could still have the Big Bad Wolf inspirations and the inspirations of Fenrir, being very impactful for both RWBY's storyline and Nora's. Depending on how things are going to play out, it's going to cause a lot of hardship for one or both of them. So, with all that being said, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. What do you think the origins of the Hound are? Both in the fairy tale inspiration, whether it being from Red Riding Hood or Norse mythology, or perhaps do you have another idea that could add on to the inspiration of the Hound? Could be from multiple different sources and have multiple different impacts for many different characters. And also its origins within the RWBY universe itself. Whether you think it's a Grimmified human, or just something that Salem has invested more resources into, or possibly a part of Salem herself, etc. I kind of like the idea that it is a Grimmified human. If it's Summer Rose or some other huntsman or huntress, that does kind of pervert the idea of huntsmen and huntresses in general. That they have trained their entire lives, have invested so much time into becoming hunters of Grimm, that now they are hunting for the master of the Grimm. A little interesting turnaround there for different characters, but let me know what you think down below. I'm really curious to see how you think it's going to impact events throughout Volume 8. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, want to see more analyses and theories like this. If you did, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.